Hi, everyone. So, continuing with our discussion about modeling tools that we were talking about in class, let's explain the multi-cut tool in a little bit more detail. So, as we briefly mentioned in class, the multi-cut tool is a tool that allows you to create extra edges on any topology that has polygons in it. And so, for that, let me actually show you an example of what that means. I'm going to go ahead and create a sphere by clicking on the little sphere icon under the poly modeling shelf, and you'll notice that when I clicked on it, it showed me a sphere, which means I am not in my interactive create mode. So I have that off for this example. Now, what I want to do at this point is I want to select that sphere on the scene, and I want to increase its size. So I can either scale it up by using the scaling tool, or in this case, I'm going to go to its channels box, and I'm going to select the node right here under inputs for that particular sphere. And I'm going to make its radius about 6 so that we can see what we're doing. Now, the multi-cut tool, like I said a second ago, it's a tool that allows you to add edges in order to redefine topology on any object that you're creating that has polygons in it. And so to access that tool, you either go up here under the poly modeling shelf, you find the tool right here. You also can find it under the mesh tools, multi-cut, and notice that it has options. You can also go into the modeling toolkit on the right-hand side navigation, and you find it under the modeling tools right here. And you can also, because this is something that's going to work at the edge level, let's go to the component level of edge right here by right-clicking on my geometry and selecting edge from the flyout menu from the marking menu. And then I'm going to use my modifier key, the shift key on the keyboard, to get the component-specific flyout menu. So if I right-click now with the shift key pressed, I am going to get this menu that allows me to select any number of different tools from within this environment. So I can go ahead and from here look for the tool that actually allows me to. One second, there you go, select it. So you select the edge and select the multi-cut tool. And that flyout menu, it's basically specific to having an edge selected, as you can see. So once I selected the edge, I see my multi-cut tool. So any of those ways allows you to basically select the tool that you're going to be working with. Right now, I'm just going to simply click on this one right here. And notice that I get my mouse to change into what looks like an X-Acto knife. So now with that done, what I can do is simply select where I want to start cutting from. It allows you to cut from vertex to vertex. So I can go ahead and roll over a vertice here. If I go click on that, a vertex, sorry. If I click on that and then I click across to this one here, it defines a line. Now that's not a cut yet, but if I were to go ahead and click enter, it automatically creates an edge for me right there. You not only have to go from vertex to vertex, on the objects. You can also cut from whatever to whatever. So if I want to cut from the middle of this line here, from the middle of this edge, and then I want to go straight to the center of this face, and then I want to go to this vertex right here, it will define that line and it will create the extra points every time it crosses the extra vertices every time it crosses an edge. So if I hit return, now I have those edges created. Now this obviously created a triangle right here. And this one also created two triangles, and we want to stay away from triangles, as I said in class. We usually want to work in quads. In some instances, like in this case right here, this is a really odd shape. That's what we call an n-gon. An n-gon is a polygon that has more than 4 edges. So in this case, this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That makes it an n-gon, which is a non-manifold polygon. And that the rendering engines don't like n-gons. We want to stay away from those as much as we can. Sometimes it's inevitable, but in most cases, if you have an n-gon, you have the ability to cut it into more like triangles, or in this case, if I simply add a line, an edge from this vertex to this vertex right here, and hit return. Now I have created 2 quads because they both have 8 edges. Watch, I mean 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this one 1, 2, 3, and 4. So those are quads, and they will render properly. Now this is the basic usage of multi-cut tools, and honestly the most that we use the multi-cut for when we're doing details on topology. However, the multi-cut tool also allows us to do something like the following. Let me go ahead and zoom out. And I want to go ahead and click over here. Let me turn off the grid on my viewport, and I'm going to click over here, and then I'm going to click right out here. Now you'll notice that this defines a line that crosses a whole bunch of faces in that object. If I hit return, you will notice that that created a cut that went across the entire object. So in some instances, we might need to cut a section of an object because the geometry is just so in this array that it'll take us longer to fix than to recreate. So we might want to have the ability to create a cut that goes across the entire object. In some other instances, we want to cut and make part of the cut disappear. So to do that, we want to make sure that under the modeling toolkit, when you select the multi-cut tool, you'll notice that you have the options for the tool right here. So if you go ahead and under these options, you find the delete faces option. When you go ahead and do the cut from here to here, let's say, and hit return, you will notice that it cut the upper portion of your object. Let me undo that really quick, and let's say I didn't want to cut the top portion. I wanted to cut the bottom portion. Well, you'll notice that for the original cut, I cut from here to here, from the lower left hand to the upper right. Now, in this case, I'm going to cut from the upper right to the lower left. With that option still selected, the delete face is selected, you'll notice that I get this little arrow, these little lines that indicate which area will be deleted when I hit return or enter. So if I hit return or enter, there I have created a cut. So that's with the option that this having the delete faces option selected allows you to do. You also have the ability to ignore back faces. So let me turn off the delete faces and say ignore back faces. So in this case, I want to go ahead and cut from here to here and hit enter. Now you'll notice that I get a cut, but when I rotate, the back faces, the faces that I wasn't seeing with my line, the ones that were not touched by my line because it wasn't facing the camera, did not get touched. So that's also an option in case you only want to touch whatever is facing the camera. And then the last option here is the extract faces option, which allows you to do the following. Let me go ahead and activate that. You'll notice that this activates these numbers here. Let me go ahead and make those units a little bit bigger so that you can see what this does. Let me go ahead and click here and then click across this way. You will notice that there's lines around it like on the delete faces option. And when I hit return, you'll notice that it cuts and it moves the resultant geometry by however many units you give it here. So you have the ability, you also have the ability to constrain in which planes you are cutting. So there's options under the multi-cut options that allow you to be specific as to how you're making those cuts in the geometry that you're working.